Hello and welcome to another episode of the BFG Podcast. We are back for the first time since the pandemic. Today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Shaun, who works for the Otago Daily Times, helping with their cartoons. Welcome, Shaun. It's a real pleasure to have you today.
Thanks for having me, Blake.
Can I start by asking you, what got you into cartoons and how did you acquire a position at the Otago Times?
Yeah, well, I think like most kids, I grew up watching cartoons and loved them, and that love never really left me. I thought I would grow out of it, like most adults seem to do, but I just love the art form, and when I was about 11 years old, I came across a book in the school library by New Zealand cartoonist Murray Ball, Four Out Flats, and I just fell in love. And I couldn't believe there was a New Zealander doing this full time. I just thought it was something that people did overseas, like in America or something. So to find someone in New Zealand that was doing it full time, I was like, well, that's what I want to do. And so I have spent the rest of my since then to now trying to achieve that goal, which is to be a full-time cartoonist. And I was fortunate enough the start of last year, Barry Stewart, the editor of the Otago Daily Times, contacted me and we started chatting, and he wanted to know if I was interested in doing daily political cartoons. And yeah, I was. And so they trialled me for a while, and I've been doing it ever since. So I've been doing it for a year and a half, or just over a year and a half now, every day.
So you haven't actually been doing it that long in respective.
No, well, I did. I worked for a rival company, Fairfax, which is now Stuff New Zealand, and I did the political cartoons for the Sunday News for 3 years. And prior to that, I had been working at the Southland Times in Invercargill, and doing cartoons and illustrations and graphics and that. So I've been at it since I was at high school. I started getting published work done when I was 7th form at Southland Boys High School. So I've been tinkering away at it for a long time. Well, yeah, I'm 47 now, so I've been doing it. I've been doing it in the papers, so selling work for over 20 years. So,
Do you have a favorite cartoon that you've done for them?
For Otago Daily Times, it's a funny thing having because you're constantly evolving, because you're doing them every day, and stuff that I did 12 months ago, which I really love. I look at it now and I'm a wee bit critical of it. I'm like, I don't know if I like that so much. So I try to do a better cartoon each day. So I'm very aware of, and often I don't look back for a while. I'll just, you get it done, you sign it off, you try to put it away, you look at it in the paper the next day, and then you're on to the next one. And you just, favorite one for them, I can't think of any offhand. I did one early on in the piece with a guy going back to work after the lockdown, and he was still dressed in his lockdown clothes, like he was in a singlet and undies, sitting at the at the cubicle, and that one there made me chuckle a little bit. Yeah.
And how long does it take you to draw them, and how do you get them approved by the newspaper? Appropriate.
Yeah, they're really good to deal with. They're really good sounding board if they're worried about being slightly close to the line or winding people up too much. But generally speaking, it's probably about 3 hours each day. I work on it. Depending when the idea comes, the idea is the key. And so I'll sit down. I sit down at 9 o'clock, and I actually sit down with the ODT and I read through it, and I have my pad and pen there, and I jot down ideas and notes, and then I go online to see what people are talking about, and I go on Twitter and I watch the news every night, and so I'm just constantly thinking all the time, and I like to have an idea locked down by 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock's kind of like my deadline for ideas, and then I sit down and draw, and my deadline is 3:30 in the afternoon, and I'm always around the deadline. Sometimes I go over it, and I do the whole cartoon in completion, inked and coloured and that, and then email it through to the office. And if there's a problem with it, they'll get back to me. If I haven't heard from them I think they have their afternoon meeting at 4 o'clock. If I haven't heard from them by 4:30, it generally means that the cartoon's good to go. And then I try to switch off and start thinking about the next day's cartoon.
Do you always do it the previous day, and do you do it by, when you say you send it to them, do you do it by a Skype or Zoom call like this, or do you just do it by phone or email? Or...
Just email through, and then they'll email me back if there's a problem with it. Or most of the problems I have with mine is my spelling. I'm an atrocious speller, so they're always correcting things. And
me too, but that's related to my disabilities.
Right. Yeah, I don't have that excuse. I'm just never been one for spelling. Yeah, but and even with typing it out, I still managed to put the apostrophes in the wrong place. But anyway, I'm trying to get better.
Yeah, and because of the cerebral palsy, I can't use my arms very fast, or sometimes at all. So it takes me a while to do everything, and I rely on dictation for most of that. So that's good. I'll try and ask this in the most polite way possible, but do you have a cartoon that didn't get rave reviews, that was negative, that you can remember, that you look back and laugh at good way?
Yeah, you get the negative reviews. You get knocked. They do knock me back a bit sometimes, because that's why I try to make sure that if you've got to be careful, you've got to put through a cartoon that you stand by and that you believe in, and so that if there is criticism of it, or if you do cop a bit of flack, that it sort of runs off you a little bit easier than if you just throw one together and put it out there. So generally speaking, the ones that I get negative feedback for, I stand beside, and I'm quite happy to hear that, because look, that's my opinion, and someone else has an opposite opinion, that I'm all for that as well, because that's how these things work. I generally don't try to engage with the negative opinion. If someone emails me or leaves a message on Facebook or Twitter, I don't engage with it. But I fully respect their opinion. They're allowed to have an opposite opinion than what I have. But and sometimes, I can't think of any recently, but some in the past, particularly when I was learning with the Sunday news and that, I think there was cartoons I did that I look back on it and I sort of cringe a little bit. I'm like, that, I can kind of see people's point. But yeah. I mean, they're opinion pieces, so you're going to wind the odd person up, or a lot of people up. So you've just got to make sure that you're not punching down too much, and you're not trying to aggravate people just for the sake of it. So it comes with the territory. So you've just got to try and balance it out. But I did cartoons, particularly when I was younger, that were a little bit racy and a little bit, like, I look back on it now, they're almost sexist to some degree, and I did that. Illustrating a story with the Southern Times, that they make me cringe a little bit. But that's just me being a young man, not really knowing where he stood, So
right.
Yeah.
Are you exclusive to the one newspaper?
Yes, I am. Yes. So therefore, everything goes through the ODT, and if I was approached by another one, I've got a contract with the Otago Daily Times. So, and I'm very happy working with them. They're a great bunch of people to work for, and I feel very privileged to work for a paper like that.
When I was doing, I do most of my questions off the cuff, but I do a bit of background work. Because that's how I work best, doing it off the cuff. So, when I was doing some background work, I noticed that you had quite a following on social media, especially Instagram. So how did that come about? How did your followers blow up, so to say? You've got
Well,
quite a
yeah,
quite a
Instagram was
few.
interesting. Yeah, I got on to Instagram was probably one of the first. I was pretty late to the game with social media. I didn't really. It didn't excite me in any way. I didn't chase it too much. And I work with a lot of people in the newspaper industry, and they're like, "You got to get on social media." And I was like, no, because it just it was something that I hadn't really looked at. But I started with Instagram because I like looking at other people's artwork. So I started following other artists, and I loved seeing their sketches and that coming up. So I started putting my own sketches on Instagram, and that's and just following the art community there, and I really enjoyed that for a long time. It was my first dabbling into social media, and I don't do a lot of Instagram now, but that was just I'm not sure how that one. No, I didn't have one particular cartoon that blew up on Instagram. It was just a progression of just posting most days sketches and that, and the followers turned up. But with other social media, like particularly Facebook and that, I did a cartoon after the mosque shootings in Christchurch of the crying Kiwi, and that went viral, and which was it was a strange time in my life. Actually, I've never had anything go like that, and because it was associated with such a tragic event, I felt a little bit strange and a little bit guilty with all this adoration for this drawing, and so. But that's where all my other followers came on social media. It was just having one cartoon that just went crazy. And
Why
so
do you, sorry.
No, you're right. You're right.
Why do you say guilty?
It felt because it was a really upsetting event, and I had no ulterior motive. Like, I didn't try to have a cartoon that went viral. I was working at the time, and I had the TV going, and I was listening to Jacinda Ardern's speech and that, and I just felt really overwhelmed. And so I sketched this little Kiwi, and crying, and it was a really quick drawing, and just put it on my Facebook to pretty much say this is how I was feeling. I put it on Twitter and Instagram, and so I felt guilty because there was a lot of people, I think, that wanted to reach out to say how they were feeling, and they sent their messages to me, which was, I found, a little bit overwhelming for a start, reading all these messages of a lot of words of love and compassion, but it felt like that should have been going to the Muslim community, not to me. And but because they didn't know where to direct their sympathy, that I got a lot of that thrown my way. So I felt guilty. I felt really emotional. It was a very, very emotional time because I tried to answer all the emails, and there was thousands of messages coming from people all over the world, and people wanting to interview me about this drawing, and it got a bit strange. But anyway.
So when you're saying people, do you mean members of the public, or do you mean
members of the public, members of the Muslim community? The media are getting hold of me. By the time I realised it had blown up, I had two missed phone calls from a French media outlet, and wanting to talk to me about it that night. And then by the time I woke up in the morning, there was T-shirts being sold with this image on it, and I had all these requests from people to talk to me about it. So, but generally speaking, most of the messages coming through Instagram, Twitter, Facebook were just members of the public, just saying, "That's how I feel. Thank you for posting this." And yeah.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know yourself, but from what I could find, now from memory, now that you remind me, I think it went to the BBC, CNN, and so forth as well.
Yeah, and it did, and it popped up on and it's such a simple image, and they were able to just use it. And a lot of them used it at the end of their newscast. They put it up and said, "We're thinking of New Zealand." And that, so yeah, it was yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
You're right. No, I've done a couple of interviews in regards to, I've done a few about this crying Kiwi, and I don't have a lot to say about it because I find I'm quite removed from it myself, because it became like an image that a lot of people took on board themselves, and I'm happy with that. And it's just looking back on it, it was just I really still haven't understood completely what went on that week. Particularly, it was just an avalanche of calls and emails and messaging, and then by the following Sunday it just switched off like a tap, and you're left sitting there going, what happened there? It was and everyone just moved on to the next news story, and that makes you feel weird too, because you're like, is that how the world works? It just turns on a dime, and next thing you know, the world's attention is on something else. And I was like, wow. So it was a lesson in how the world works to some degree. It was quite bizarre.
But it must make you feel pretty good to know that people from BBC, CNN, and many forms of other media, social media, were showing your cartoon. And you're from a little town in New Zealand where we're filming here. But that must make you feel pretty special.
Yeah, and like as a cartoonist, you want your cartoons to be seen. That's why you do it. You want your work to get out there. I think because it was associated with such a tragedy, I think was the upsetting side of it for me. And I also thought to myself, imagine being on the end of a cartoon that actually went viral for other reasons, and there was a lot of hatred towards it or something. That must be a horrible thing. And so at least there was a message of love and understanding coming from that cartoon. And I think that's what I took in the end. It was just for it to be received so well, and to make, it made some people. It gave some people a sense of something to hold on to. I don't know. So it was, in a way, it was very nice, and it was very humbling to have your work out there to that many people. But yeah.
Before we circle back to New Zealand quickly again, would you say was the highlight of your career so far? In terms of exposure and in terms of how well it was received.
Yeah, it's certainly a watershed moment in my career. I don't know if it's a highlight because of the emotion that's attached to it, but it's certainly it's my most famous cartoon without a doubt. And in the more pessimistic days, I'd say it's always going to be my most famous cartoon. And if that's the case, then I'm fine with that, because it's I think it's a lovely, simple, wee cartoon. I often say that if I knew it was going to go the way it did, I probably would have drawn it a little bit better. Would have spent a wee bit more time on it. But then again, that's probably what attracts people to it. It's a very simple image. So yeah, I've had some I've had some lovely moments in my career to date, and that is certainly up there with but like getting my first cartoon published was a great day for me. So exciting to see your work in a newspaper. And I think I was 17. I was 11 when I had a cartoon published in the Southern Times, but from 17 I started doing a weekly cartoon serial for the Southern Times, and that was a huge buzz. Like every Friday that was in the paper, and it just, so you have these little moments as you go along, and I've done thousands of cartoons for publications now, but you still look back on those early ones and they're very special.
Right. And have you done any international publications as of yet, or do you plan to?
I haven't done a lot. I did the cover for Lay Express in France. They contacted me a couple of years ago when they had actually saw some of my work on Instagram, of all places. And the editor of Lay Express it's a political magazine newspaper, sort of like Time magazine a wee bit in France. They contacted me and wanted me to do a Donald Trump cover, and I was very excited to do that for them. And it was a really quick turnaround, and which I'm used to doing, but it was quite an intricate piece, so I was working day and night to get that finished in time. But that's probably been my biggest international client. But most of the drawings and work I've done with children's storybooks and cartoons are all mostly New Zealand.
You're most famous for your political cartoons, at least to me, and probably to a lot of people who will be watching this. So, how do you make sure you get the faces accurate and stuff like that? Do you go on Twitter, look at photos of them, look at old images?
Yeah,
and who is your favorite to draw? So, if you could just talk a bit about that to close, and also to close, talk about how you got the idea for the Super Saturday that just passed. That was pretty.
Oh, did you like that? What did you think of that one? I wasn't sure if that was going to work or not.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Yeah, good. I'll start with the Super Saturday. Well, any excuse to draw superheroes or use that imagery, those colours of Superman's suit, or put Judith Collins in a Wonder Woman costume. I mean, that I find that entertaining. That to me, that makes me chuckle, the idea of it. And I've got a real, like a lot of my inspiration or the people, I think the greatest cartoonists I've ever come across are the guys from Mad Magazine. And I read them so much when I was a kid. And Mort Drucker was a big favourite of mine. He was a very, very clever caricaturist and cartoonist. And so sometimes I like to, you can certainly see the influence of him and those guys in a drawing like that. I don't do a lot like that because they're very time consuming and the gags kind of like, it's quite a light gag, but excuse to put Jacinda Ardern and David Seymour and Judith Collins in superhero costumes is just, it's too hard not to pass up. Drawing caricatures is bloody hard. I wouldn't say I've never been comfortable with it. It's a part of the cartooning landscape, and it's something you got to work on, and it's something you got to be able to do when you do cartoons, particularly political cartoons. I work really hard to try and get it right, but I base them off, so if I'm doing, when I first started out, so if I was doing Jacinda Ardern, I would get photos off Google and I go through them and I try to find the right look, and you end up getting 2 or 3 that you feel like looks like her, and then you just have to sketch away. When I'm drawing her now, I don't look at reference photos as much because I've gotten used to drawing her. I really like drawing Jacinda Ardern. She's got really great angles to her face. She's very sculpted. The high cheekbones, the nose, the mouth, right. It works really well. And so I tend to just draw her now without using a reference. But yeah, so I'll start with a reference, looking at photos, and then from there try and, because particularly political cartooning is it's the simplification of an idea. You're distilling an idea down to the simplest form. So I kind of call them cartoon caricatures. They're not fully formed caricatures. You try to simplify the image down to make it even more readable. But I love drawing Judith Collins. She was really difficult to get right at the start. And Winston Peters is a delight to draw because he's got so many. He's got such a great face. Like he's got the wrinkles and like an older man. So he's got. Right. There's so much more to work with, but yeah, look, it's sometimes you get them straight away. You sit down and you're like, whoa, bang, got it. And other times you're spending a couple of hours trying to get these guys right, and then even then they don't look right. David Shaw, James Shaw and David Seymour are particularly difficult to get for some reason. Trump was brilliant, but yeah, when you get it right, it feels amazing.
Right, and just to finish, have any of the local politicians reached out to you?
Yeah, you do. You get a message from their office requesting the odd cartoon, which I always find quite humorous because you're generally taking the mickey out of them, but they seem to enjoy them. And so I just, there's a few that contact me. No one's ever contacted me in anger and said anything, so which is nice.
Any personal back and forth?
Sorry, any personal what?
Back and forth.
With politicians?
Yeah.
No.
On Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or anything?
No, I've had some messages from politicians, but no back and forth. Like, Darren saw her caricature, and so she messaged me about the detail in it and said, "Wow, you really went to town there." And had the former mayor of Wellington laughing about isn't it? But generally, they're quite tongue-in-cheek comments. But I don't usually do much back and forth with them. I just like the comment and leave it at that, because I don't want to have a relationship with them. I don't want to be too close to a politician that I may be taking the mickey out of the following week. So, yeah, best to keep it distant.
Yeah, does it make you feel special to know when they do, a bigger pardon? Does it make you feel special when they do reach out to you?
Yeah, it does. It makes you feel odd sometimes, because I spent most of my career working in an office environment with in a newspaper, busy newspapers, and so I work from home now, and sometimes it's very quiet, and it sometimes feels like you're working in a vacuum, and you're doing these daily, and you can go days and weeks without hearing anything about any cartoon, and you're just putting them out there, and you forget that you're actually getting them published, that people are actually seeing them. So when sometimes people reach out, or you read a letter to the editor in the newspaper, you're like, oh, heck, that's right, okay, people are actually seeing these. So it does make me feel special. It's quite a neat feeling, I have to say. And then sometimes when they mention a cartoon, you're like, oh, you forget, you've got to remember there's actually people. If you're caricaturing someone like Judith Collins, and you realise that Judith Collins has actually seen that caricature and she's commented about it, it's like, it makes you think twice. You're like, oh, did she really like that? But yeah.
For anyone, so for anyone listening, where can they find you?
Find my work. I post regularly on Facebook. That's probably my best place to go. That's Yo Cartoons. Just look up Yo Cartoons on Facebook. Right? There's a website. If you type in Yo Cartoons on the internet, you'll come across most of the places. That's my brand. So I've got that right across the board, from Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and website. So, but I think Facebook is the one I use as more of the one I post the most on. It's just a bigger outlet, and more people use it. So I just I'm not allowed to post. I don't post the day of the cartoon being published, and I don't post all of them, because I like to respect the subscribers of the newspaper. They pay for a newspaper. They want to, and they should be getting the product first. But I generally put 2 to 3 cartoons up a week, so that's probably the best place to go.
So thank you to the viewers for listening, and thank you, Shaun, for coming on the show. Just stay there with me one moment. But to the viewers, I'll say goodbye, and we'll see you next time.